Welcome to MINDSHOCK True Crime. This is your host, Pierce McGuire, and this is the Maura series, the longest running series on MINDSHOCK. This is part 89. Steffen Baldwin, this dog serial killer, allegedly, who supposedly had some kind of involvement with Maura at West Point, and then left West Point after Maura left West Point. And then his fingerprints supposedly found on a CD in Maura Murray's car, which we'll be examining all of that and more. Is this the missing link to solving the entire case? Once again, broken by James Rener. This news. Rener has possibly done more for this case than anybody else, other than maybe John Smith. I mean, these are the two individuals that have been pushing this case forward. Also, two of the most hated individuals by all the online goofs. Is it some kind of concerted goof effort to shut down logic and reason and keep this case from being solved? But, yeah, we will see all that in typical MINDSHOCK fashion with logic and reason at the forefront, unlike any other podcast out there. If you want to help support the podcast, help keep up awareness in unsolved cases, missing persons cases, cold cases of all kinds, wrongful convictions, and more, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. If you're not getting notifications, even the Patreon free tier will give you all the notifications YouTube might not. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section, unless, of course, you're with us here live. Then drop them in the live chat, and I'll try to get to each and every one of them. Welcome, Pinto Sack, Team Neutral Gaming, Lord Zed Photo Zombies. That's an interesting name. Pinto Sack says, this guy's a real weirdo. I mean, that's being very generous. I mean, can you imagine slaughtering innocent dogs? I mean, it takes a special kind of scum to do that. A special kind of scum. Pinto Sack says, I think the cadet at the accident was someone else. So if you haven't checked out the episode on the cadet, there was one individual named, and apparently it was them, and that may or may not be connected to this. Team Neutral Gaming also asked, did he work at Domino's? That's a great question. I think the Domino's individual, if he was also a mechanic, that would have been a different individual that we have gone over previously. But let's pick up right where we left off. So here is an article we can get to last time. Oh, yeah, the name change. 1 second here. Let's get the receipt here. I believe this was also... I think this is also from James Rener, I believe. I don't have it labeled here. Apparently he did... We'll get into the exact timeline of him changing his name. I mean, the timeline here is very curious. I mean, the coincidence theorists are going to have a field day here. I mean, there's going to be so many things for them to write off as mere coincidence. So, February... So what is this here? Service completion... December 10th, 2004. December 2nd, 2004. Decree changing name filed from Steffen Finkelstein to Steffen Baldwin. It's curious. That's curious. Yeah, that's very curious. Apparently, for some reason, this showed up. Yeah, this showed up as Stefan with an A in the title here, but in the thumbnail, it's Steffen, 2 E's. And again, this is not to be confused with Stefan, who's apparently another individual connected to the Haverhill area in this small hamlet in the middle of nowhere with all these connections. So, alright, well, let's go through this one article, then we'll get to James Renner. You know what else is kind of strange? The case, which has never really been that quiet, this is probably the quietest the Maura case has ever been, when this has been the biggest break in years, basically. I mean, this is the biggest news in years in the Maura case, and it's all quiet on the Western Front for some reason. It's kind of weird. Is something brewing behind the scenes? I mean, has the Murray family said anything about this guy? I mean, other than James Renner, who has even commented on it? Whatever happened to Erin Larkin? She's no longer around. What about all these other shady people that were around the case? Nobody's commenting on the case anymore. Like, what happened to all the commentators? The Dunning-Kruger crowd, Erin Larkin and all those cronies. Whatever happened to all of them? Nobody's commenting on anything anymore? Whatever happened to those ghosts? Alright, so here's a clip. Actually, we're going to play. It's not an article, it's a news clip. So let's play this news clip. I mean, this is actually getting media attention, which is also kind of weird that nobody's talking about it. This isn't some random fringe theory on Reddit. Like, this is actually getting mainstream news attention. Yeah, I'll play the clip right now. If it works, hopefully this will work. It says fraudulent dog whisperer connected to decades-old missing persons cases, March 20th, 2025.
Earlier this week, we told you about a former humane agent who was sentenced to more than 15 years in prison for his role in the deaths of more than a dozen dogs. That case came to light thanks to the work of a Camel detective, but his work also uncovered a link to a nationally known decades-old missing persons case. Corey McCrae explains how the investigation may have provided a new break in the case.
Madison, good evening. Detective Jim Conroy tells me he got a call from the New Hampshire State Police shortly after Baldwin's arrest, saying that these fingerprints that were submitted upon his arrest matched a set of prints in a car from a missing woman back in the early 2000s.
Based on what I have learned of him, and I would think he would definitely be a viable suspect and somebody worth, investigating.
Detective Jim Conroy has become quite familiar with Steffen Baldwin.
Is that a Freudian slip there? If someone were investigating? So has this detective here, did he just spill the beans here that there's no active investigation? Because the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit, like law enforcement, they were constantly saying, they're working on it. Everything is sealed. You're never going to see anything. They still haven't released all of this information, all of this critical information. I mean, it's going over 20 years now. And apparently, I guess they're that close to solving it, they can't release anything. And listen, this guy just said, if someone, I'm going to replay this part here. If someone were investigating the case, so did he just kind of blow the whistle on the lack of investigation in this case? Last sled says, "You're in Rener's show intro." Am I? I didn't know that. What are you talking about? Which show intro? I'm gonna play Rener's clips on Steffen. I apparently didn't notice that. If that's the show intro you're talking about, are you talking about the YouTube show or his or the audio only? Does he have an audio only podcast show? I don't know. The intro to his weekly show, the YouTube one? Well, we'll see. We'll see when I play it. But this guy's interesting. So he just admit and blow the whistle, saying that there was actually no investigation being done.
I have learned of him.
Thousands.
Based on what I have learned.
Thousands.
Based on what I have learned of him. And I would think he would definitely be a viable suspect and somebody worth, investigating. Viable suspect and somebody worth, investigating.
Detective Jim Conroy has become quite familiar with Steffen Baldwin, a former humane agent in Union County, Ohio, who was just sentenced to more than 15 years for an elaborate scheme where he promised to rehabilitate dangerous dogs for profit, but instead killed them. At least 18 dogs to date.
A few weeks after his arrest, I received a call from the New Hampshire State Police stating that, there was a hit on his fingerprint.
The last thing I ever expected was for Steffen's case to intersect with Maura Murray's disappearance, but here we are.
James Rener, a journalist and host of True Crime Weekly podcast, has been following her case for a while and tells me he asked Baldwin about his fingerprint being found in a car she was in.
When I spoke to him the day of his sentencing, admitted that and said what he was told was the fingerprint was on a CD or a CD case found in Maura Murray's car.
According to Rener, Steffen and Maura attended West Point together, were in a relationship, and left around the same time.
He goes to California for a while, eventually ends up in Ohio and becomes this quasi-celebrity known for his work in dog rescues.
With more local news, I'm Corey McCrae.
Earlier
Okay, I might actually have to feed AI a coincidence stack here. Okay, what are the chances? We have New Hampshire, Ohio. So the Roushes are from Ohio. James Renner's from Ohio. This guy randomly goes to Ohio? I mean, there's 50 states out there and a whole bunch of other countries. I mean, for everybody to be in either Ohio or New Hampshire, that's kind of weird. I mean, does anybody else find that kind of weird? I mean, of the states that are most named in this case, and the most amount of individuals intersecting this case, I mean, just the coincidence stack is just so high. Wow. Alright, let's get to Rener's info, because it was funny, because when this was first breaking, a lot of goofs, like on the Sham subreddit, the so-called official Maura Murray subreddit, r/Maura Murray, that Sham subreddit where they shut down all logical discussion. And then the Maura Murray sub, which is a little bit better. Occasionally there's some logical posts that sneak through. Not too many, but there's a couple here and there. A lot of goofs were automatically downplaying this, saying it was just a rumor that his fingerprint was found in the CD. Like, they were immediately shutting everything down without actually waiting for real info or even looking it up. And that tells the story. It's almost like there's some kind of either a paid presence psychological op online surrounding this case, shutting down any logical discussion or anyone even suggesting that Maura Murray wasn't, didn't even make it up to New Hampshire, or, anything other than her succumbing to the elements is simply a non-possibility in a case where the police won't release anything for some reason. So yeah, a lot of curious stuff. Alright, let's move on to Rener.
Hey there. There, True Crime Addicts. It's me, James Renner, with another special edition of True Crime this week. I want to talk to you about updates in the Maura Murray case regarding Steffen Baldwin, this possible new suspect that popped up on our radar in March. I'm going to update you on what we know so far, and then I'm going to get into some new information, because just today I received Steffen Baldwin's autobiography. He was working on an autobiography. At the time of his arrest, the police were able to obtain it through a subpoena, and it provides some fascinating insight into his mind, into his history, into West Point, into his upbringing, all these things. And I think it could be very important.
No, my bad. This is actually the third video. We have to watch the second one first. We watched the first one in episode... Let me just double check how far we got in the previous episode. We got quite a lot of cases to cover here. The most comprehensive podcast in the history of existence is, of course, MINDSHOCK. Yeah, so we just went over the first video. Now we're going to go over the second. This is the third video. We're going to get to it in a second. Let me just play the second video. Oh, wait a second. Is that? Oh, yeah. This is the third one.
Hi there.
Yeah, we're going to do the second one first. Then we'll watch the third one.
And welcome back to another special episode of True Crime This Week with me, James Renner. Hey, I knew Maura Murray's case was popular, but I did not expect the episode to blow up the way that it did. And I wanted to hop on here real fast and provide some updates, because information has been coming in like lightning speed in the last 24 hours. If you're just catching up, I revealed on the podcast yesterday that New Hampshire State Police found a fingerprint in Maura Murray's car that linked to a man named Steffen Baldwin. According to Steffen, the fingerprint that was found on a CD or a CD case. It's unclear which exactly it was, that he had exchanged with Maura when they were dating at West Point. Now keep in mind, this is simply Steffen's explanation for where that fingerprint was found, and he explained that when he spoke to the FBI less than a year ago, when they questioned him about this, that's what he was told. All I know, all that I was told prior to talking to Steffen, was that a fingerprint was found in their car. He says it was a CD or CD case. Maura Murray, as you know, is a young woman who went missing in the White Mountains of New Hampshire after crashing her car into a snowbank there in February of 2004. She was the subject of my book, True Crime Addict, and if you'd like to know more about the particulars of her case, please check out the episode that came out yesterday. Back to Steffen. According to the source close to the investigation into Maura Murray's disappearance, the lead detective in Maura Murray's case told others that Steffen was his #1 suspect. Now, this was said after Steffen's arrest on unrelated charges here in Ohio as far back as 2020. But Steffen still remains interesting enough to law enforcement that he was questioned by the FBI just last year.
Okay, so who is aware they've been sitting on this for 5 years now? So he was arrested in 2020, and at least one officer said he was the #1 suspect even back then. And he was just re-interviewed regarding the case last year. So they've been sitting on this for almost half a decade. Okay, do any insiders in this case... I don't ever recall this particular Steffen being connected to the case. There were rumors of Stefan, the other boyfriend. Now, there are at least 2 other Steffens here. If you haven't checked out, I think I played the clip in the previous episode. I'm not going to play it again here. We got too much to go over. But in the previous episode, I played the Steffen clip from previous episodes. There's one shady individual in the Haverhill area And then there were other rumors of someone in the UMass area. So there's at least 2 other Stefans, and then there's this Steffen. Pinto Sack says Sarah Alfieri's cousin. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, again, this case is unlike any other. You take any avenue, and you have tons of splintering rabbit holes. Well, there was a Stefano, and then I think there was another, and then a Stefan. This is Steffen with an E. So yeah, Sarah Alfieri's cousin was the other one, and then there was another one, a much older one, in the Haverhill area who was connected to the pornographers at the Nootka Lodge, coincidentally rolling into town February 9th, 2004. A lot of coincidences that particular Monday. You got the DEA, the U.S. Marshal activity, all the suicide calls being called in. I mean, I'm not going to go. I mean, it would take me 5 hours just to go over the coincidence stack from that particular Monday in this hamlet in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, okay. Last Sled said, yeah, it's weird that he apparently dated more, and I've never heard anyone talk about him until now. Okay, there were rumors that there was a friend or someone known to her from West Point. I mean, Julie mentioned it before. She had been communicating with, I think, 2 individuals from West Point, not 1. So he wasn't named, but he was referenced and not named for years. I don't know if they stated that she dated him per se. I'm not sure about that, but there was communication. So there's 3, there's a Stefano, a Steffen, a Stefan, and then Steffen. So we have 3 here. There might have actually been another one. I forgot. There's so many episodes here. There might have been a rumor of another one, but he might have been conflated with the existing ones. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure this guy, since his arrest in 2020, because there were rumors, the rumors that she had been in contact with 1 or 2 people from West Point, I believe that's even prior to 2020. I think there were rumors of that regarding Instant Messenger and all of that, even going back further. And then Julie Murray kind of brought that back officially. But anyway, let's continue here.
Authorities in Ohio refer to Steffen as a serial killer of dogs. He was sentenced Thursday to 15 and a half years in prison for needlessly killing 18 dogs in Ohio. Dogs that he was supposed to be training so that they were less aggressive. And he would tell the owners, oh, they're doing fine, they're doing great. But he would be killing the dogs in order to open up more space.
So a couple things here. One, I'm shocked he even got 15. Not that, I mean, obviously that's nowhere near enough. That should be for 1 dog, or if not longer. I mean, this is just so disgusting. I mean, this is pure evil. To do that to man's best friend, I mean, what does that say? I mean, like I mentioned this in the previous episode, there's an old saying, you can tell a lot about a man by the way he treats a dog. And I think that's very telling. Just the manipulation factor. It's not like he just went out and hunted dogs and killed them. He gained their trust first. Just, you know, the level of evil here, it's crazy. I mean, this is way beyond just some random guy going around killing animals. Like, this is the manipulation of a trusting animal. And this is crazy. So, 1, I'm surprised they even gave him 15. I mean, it should be at least 150. I mean, there's a lot of dogs here. I mean, this is crazy. And these are only the ones they found out about. And, I mean, and the other thing that kind of jumps out at me, I mean, there were child killers who got less time. But, I mean, that's a subject for another podcast.
He also killed another 18 dogs that we know of in California while he was awaiting trial. There's a rumor going around that the private investigators working with the Murray family vetted this guy and found nothing. However, I suspect the person they're talking about is a man named Steffen, spelled Stefan, who knew Maura at UMass, and not this Steffen Baldwin, which is spelled Steffen. Regardless, I've now spoken to Steffen's former partners and family members, and nobody has heard from these private investigators. Is this the key to the case? I don't know. But finding Steffen's fingerprints in the car of a missing woman is certainly newsworthy, given his violent history. Now let's talk about that and some of the other details I've learned about Steffen in the last 24 hours. Yesterday I spoke to Megan, who dated Steffen a few years back. Steffen was abusive, she says, and living with him was traumatic and led to a diagnosis of PTSD. When Megan met Steffen, she was getting started in the animal rescue community, where Steffen was a bit of a celebrity. Soon he had put her in charge of his dogs, but he never paid her. She says, quote, Steffen is very secretive about his life, and he looks for those who have been previously abused. That goes for dogs and women. He would flip out very easily and start yelling for no reason. Once we were in the car and I was driving, Steffen was yelling again. He said he wanted me to open the door so he could push me into traffic. He often threatened me with violence. Another time he pushed me up against the fence, and I had to tase him to let me go.
Wait, what? So this woman just randomly has a taser on. The way Rener just casually read that, like as if it was just like a casual push away. I mean, what? And it also kind of sounded like this was a regular occurrence. Like she constantly had to tase him. I mean, I'm not laughing at obviously I'm not laughing at this scumbag abusing anybody. I'm laughing at the lackadaisical fashion, as if this is a routine occurrence that this scumbag needs to get tased in order to be kept in line. And but like as if, I mean, what happens after? They just go back to normal until the next incident, then he just needs to get tased. He needs to get tased again. Like what is going on here? I mean, but this is very revealing. So point one immediately, remember the days when people thought James Renner was lying about all the people coming out against Bill Rausch? Like remember that goof Aaron Larkin saying James Renner was making everything up? And then the receipts come flowing in, the police reports, all of those regarding Bill Rausch. And then it even gets to court, in which Erin Larkin herself is a witness, a character witness for Bill Rausch for a case she said is made up and it will never get to court because James Renner made it up. Like the level of goofery of the gorilla ontologist, Erin Larkin, is just insane. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Maura AI analysis, the AI didn't say Aaron Larkin was guilty, but the AI pinpointed Aaron Larkin as knowing more about the case than any other previous individuals. Obviously, Steffen was not on this list. So, Pinto Sex is hiding a taser in her wedding dress. I mean, wow. I mean, this is just crazy, though. Like, the fact that she has to have a taser, but, I mean, you know, I'm not going to start speculating on why continue the relationship, but okay, point two here. So obviously Renner's sources are good. Renner's sources are very good. Doesn't mean that this is true information, but it does mean Renner is honest about what he is reporting and what he is saying has been said to him. And again, like I said, I mean, I've corresponded with Renner for quite a few years now, and he's never appeared deceptive in any way regarding anything. So, you know, he simply says what's been reported. Some of it, you know, might not be too tasteful or per se or respectful of certain victims, but he was simply reporting what was said to him in the interest of getting as much information out there as possible to get cases solved and raise awareness, which he has done arguably better than anybody else. So anyway, okay, second point. So what happened to Maura? So if this is like an MO of this Steffen guy, of this Baldwin goof, if this is his MO, does that mean Maura had some kind of abuse even prior to Bill Rausch? Like, what was going on at West Point? Because if he's drawn to and identifies abused women, dogs, whatever, like that's his MO in how he abuses living things, that's kind of weird. So what happened at West Point prior to Maura even meeting Steffen? Were there other incidents with other people there? Because Clark's not in the chat right now, but Clark had 2 sightings of Maura Murray a number of years ago at West Point. Clark was a professor at West Point, and he had 2 sightings. He ran into and talked to Maura Murray, who he believes was Maura Murray. He also kind of blew the whistle a little bit on what was known. I mean, obviously there was a lot of SA, the second word there, assault. I think YouTube likes to censor stuff, but so apparently there was some kind of SA club, or R-word club, at West Point involving professors. Clark, I don't know if Clark pointed the finger exactly. I was asking, but if Julie Murray was involved, Bill Rausch is involved, professors like McDonald was involved. I don't remember his exact answer, but he did not say no. He said a lot of people were involved, or he wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I'm actually surprised Clark is not in here right now. Clark's actually been on a lot of, unless he is, he just hasn't commented yet. Usually he comments. But, yeah, Clark, I asked, Clark was on the last one with, on the subject of Steffen. I believe Clark was not there at the time. He wasn't there in 04. He wasn't there while these people were there. I forgot the exact year he arrived. I believe he arrived at West Point as a professor a couple years after these people were gone. So he said he knew, he saw Professor McDonald around. But he was only there after Maura, Steffen, and Bill Rausch had already left West Point. So anyway, that would have been pretty crazy if he was there with, and he remembered more. Like if he was there earlier, I mean, that would have been very helpful. But still, I mean, you know, he cited Maura twice. Clark seems quite honest. I mean, he's been participating in a lot of podcasts aside from this case. So, yeah, he apparently, from everything I've seen of Clark's comments, there's really nothing suspect about him to lead me to believe that he's making any of this up. So, for what it's worth, Clark seems honest to me. Maybe he'll get here soon and he can comment further on this, but let's continue.
Megan says, and that's end quote there, Megan says that twice Steffen took sudden road trips and left her alone with the dogs, and he'd get angry if she called him while he was away. When she was with Steffen, he was not into hard drugs, but would smoke pot, as far as she knew. Not into hard drugs, but he would smoke pot all day, every day. He talked a lot about his abusive childhood and how it affected him. Megan also believes that Steffen's abusive behavior contributed to the deaths of 2 of his ex-girlfriends. One woman, Amanda Walton, was clean and sober when she met Steffen, but died of an overdose after being in a relationship with him. Before she died, Amanda reached out to Megan, and she shared those texts with me. Amanda reached out in May 2017, quote, "Hey there, I know this is a little strange, but my curiosity has gotten the best of me. I dated Steffen before you did, and I honestly was just wondering if he turned into a total fucking psycho on you too, or what. The man is batshit crazy, and I hope he didn't fuck you over as bad as he did me." End quote. Steffen's other girlfriend, Shelby Graber, died in an accident on Highway 270 in Ohio after driving the wrong way. At the time of that accident, she was over the legal limit for alcohol and also high.
Now, we did talk about this in the previous episode. Like, how many dead bodies does this guy have in his wake? How many was he directly responsible for? Again, I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue. This is MINDSHOCK, of course. The motto is here, The only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. And apparently this guy's mother is also missing. So, and then Bill Rausch has at least one ex-girlfriend rumored to have died, possibly in a horseback riding accident. Now, I asked Rener if there was any further info on that, but apparently that's been pretty hush-hush on the side of Bill Rausch. And then, for those who know, Bill Rausch also had a sister who committed suicide that might be completely unrelated, of course. But there are certain parallels here between Bill Rausch and Steffen Baldwin. It's just, and again, Bill Rausch, I wonder, I mean, I'm assuming they are investigating any kind of connections between Rausch and Baldwin after they both left West Point. Were they in contact with each other? Was Billy, and I mentioned this before, is it possible Bill Rausch is the good guy? Is it possible? And he was rushing there to save Maura because he knew what was going on. Would that explain a lot of these actions? On the other hand, Bill Rausch also trained in psychological operations. But you know what's kind of curious? What's kind of curious, here, let me put up some images of Bill Rausch here. Because you could see that MK Ultra stare in Steffen, but you don't really see it in Bill Rausch. So I wonder what that means. Because Bill Rausch actually looks fairly normal-ish, I would say, compared to some of these other characters. Now, obviously, looks can be deceiving for sure, and he's got, you know, a long list of women with a lot of complaints, which all seem to be legitimate. But it's just kind of curious, because a lot of these people, especially, you know, individuals that end up being in contact with government agencies and then somehow being involved in mass shootings, they have a certain MK Ultra stare. And Rausch does not appear to have that stare. He almost kind of looks like... He kind of looks like a simpleton. Like, Steffen clearly has that MK Ultra stare. Now look at Rausch here. He almost looks like he's like, you know, a short bus rider. I mean, look at that. There's no intense MK Ultra stare as compared to Baldwin. I mean, even deployed here, I mean, look at Rausch. He looks like he could be the simpleton of the group. I mean, actually, there's quite a few guys here that look like they could be simpletons. It looks like quite a special platoon here, but I mean, Rausch does not have that MK Ultra stare, but Baldwin clearly does. What does that mean? Now, again, we know Bill Rausch was involved in psychological operations. I might have to do a short clip on that. That was quite a while. I mean, I did probably at least 9 hours on Bill Rausch. Pinto Sack says, why would he bring the McDonald's with him, though? Still suspicious. Maybe the McDonald's knew something about Steffen. Pinto Sack says, the simpleton platoon. I mean, look at these. No offense, but the only semi-normal looking guy is the short guy next to Rausch. No offense, I mean, but this almost looks like some kind of like Keystone platoon. But anyway, so again, in the deep dive on Rausch, he was trained and involved in psychological operations. Now maybe he was on the admin side, and Steffen Baldwin was on the subordinate side of psychological operations. Welcome, Walking in 4K and Finnegan. Oh, Finnegan had an earlier comment. Wonder how much he's exaggerating these connections to Maura Murray. Wrote an autobiography in his 20s, main character syndrome. Much. There's been quite a few people who've written an autobiography in their 20s. But yeah, I mean, this guy does seem like a narcissist either way. But I wouldn't say that's a red flag per se, especially if he wasn't planning on finishing. Was it planned to be finished, or what? Because a lot of people, not a lot, a certain amount of people, they have more than one autobiography. They write one earlier in life about, certain things they went through, not even necessarily thinking it's all that great. They just write it kind of for themselves, just to document that period of their life. And if people find it interesting, cool. If not, whatever. And then there are certain celebrities, of course, who write autobiographies in their 20s, specifically for for attention. But Lord Zed says, the big guy looks like a fun guy, to be fair. Yeah, it's an interesting shaped head, though. Alright, so I just wanted to point that out. There is a lack of MK Ultra stare in Roush. Now, in certain photos, he does look kind of troubled, though. In particular, I'll put one photo on the screen here. This one is a really weird photo. It's actually from a video. If I can find it. Actually, here's another random photo of Roush. Just notice the absence of the MK Ultra stare. He always kind of looks buzzed, though. He definitely always looks kind of buzzed. And just a quick recap for those who are not familiar with what people have dug up on Roush. Oh, here's the photo. Still not quite MK Ultra, but this one is one of the most disturbing ones of Roush. Again, without really getting too much into the background of it, but it just looks like he seems kind of troubled about something. It could be anything. Could be something innocuous. Could be, trying to figure out how to save money on buying a car in Massachusetts versus New York State, but that old sob story. Is that what's on his mind? I wonder if Bill's gonna comment on this. Bill's commented on Twitter before. He had a whole meltdown over the sob. He went on and on about me covering him purchasing the sob. So he clearly didn't like that, and of course all his trolling on Reddit. But it would be curious if he actually honestly answered the question of what he was thinking about right in this image here. But old rumors are, and old posts on social media, apparently he did like to get drunk and go after much younger females. That was the rumor mill. I posted some of that social media stuff earlier. But yeah, so he definitely seems like he likes his drink, but he doesn't have an intense MK Ultra stare like Steffen here. Walking in 4K said the sob story was pretty funny. Yeah, how is Massachusetts a better option than New York State? It's kind of weird. That didn't make any sense. Pinto Sack says, Bruce McGuire, My Life and Times, prefaced by Maxwell Powers. Oh, man. That would be a funny book, wouldn't it?
Another rumor that popped up yesterday was that Steffen's mother is missing. And I can confirm that that is true as far as we know after speaking with his father, Howard, who provided more information about Steffen's childhood. Howard was married to Steffen's mother, Barbara Baldwin, but divorced when he and his brother were very young. At the time, he had serious concerns about her mental stability. A judge granted Barbara custody, but also named Steffen and his brother wards of the state. Barbara then disappeared with both boys, and he didn't see them for several years. Turns out Barbara had taken them to California, where they lived in a ghetto near LA for a time. About 5 years later, Barbara contacted Howard and said the boys needed him. Howard was living in New York, but immediately moved to California to be near them. Eventually, Steffen's brother moved in with his father, but Steffen stayed with his mother. Barbara became a born-again evangelical Christian out there, and Steffen became part of that church too. At a custody hearing when Steffen was about 10 years old, a judge asked who he'd like to live with, and he said his mother, because his father would not let Jesus into his heart. I should note that Howard is Jewish. Howard didn't see Steffen again until after he had left West Point as a young man. He does not know why Steffen left West Point within a week of Maura Murray leaving the school. Steffen spoke on social media about his mother disappearing several years ago. Howard confirms that nobody knows where she is and nobody has spoken to her in many years, saying, quote, "I don't know if she's alive or dead or has been killed and buried in the desert," end quote. Steffen claims he has never been to New Hampshire or UMass in his life. When I spoke to his ex-wife Haley today, she said, quote, "He was living with me in California in 2004, end quote. Those are the updates. If you know Steffen and have any information that does in fact place him in New Hampshire or around UMass, I'd be very interested in hearing about it. You can contact me directly at James W. Rener at State Police. I expect that's the most of it. So thanks for your attention, and we'll talk soon. Shutterstock, in which Hey there, true crime addicts. It's me, James Renner, with another special crime this week. I want to talk to you about updates in the Maura Murray case regarding Steffen Baldwin, this possible new suspect that popped up on our radar in March. I'm going to update you on what we know so far, and then I'm going to get into some new information, because just today I received Steffen Baldwin's autobiography. He was working on an autobiography at the time of his arrest.
And here is the legendary Clark Rice in the chat. Welcome, Clark. So what I was just talking about you earlier, so from what Rener has revealed here, apparently 2 ex-girlfriends are dead of Steffen. One of them was commenting on how he apparently picks previously abused animals and women to be involved with. So my question, Clark, and again, the rumor is that Bill Rausch was the one who reported Steffen and Maura in a dorm room, which is against the rules, apparently. And you could clarify that as well. Female and male cadets in a dorm room is apparently not allowed, but Rausch supposedly was the one who reported them. And so is it possible Maura was abused prior to that incident, and that's why Steffen kind of, in quotations, picked her or was looking at her or became interested in her? That club that you mentioned, Clark, the SA club or the R club, whatever you want to call it for YouTube censoring purposes, is it possible Maura was somehow targeted prior? And can you refresh my memory? Did you say that Julie and Bill could have both been involved in that club? Not that you said that they were, but just that it's possible that they were? Clark says, yes, that is very against the rules for male and female cadets to be in a dorm. Yeah, Clark says yes. Was there a reason why you said that? And McDonald. You said McDonald, certain professors could have been involved. Not necessarily specifically McDonald, but that professors could have been involved. Obviously, I do not claim anything is true or untrue. I do not claim anybody is innocent or guilty of anything. This is, of course, MINDSHOCK. We are just logically discussing many theories, mutually exclusive and otherwise. Walking in 4K says, anything is people. To quote Maxwell, people are people. Yeah, that was one of his astute bangers. I don't know what's better. People are people, or Craig of Fight the Flat Earth saying over time things happen. Oh man, that was great. Okay, we're gonna be laughing about that forever. I mean, Craig is an absolute treasure. All right, so Clark, yeah, was there a reason you mentioned Julie, Bill, and professors like McDonald as being part of the club? And what year did you get there? So you got there a couple of years after Maura and Stefan and Bill were already gone?
The police were able to obtain it through a subpoena, and it provides some fascinating insight into his mind, into his history, into West Point, into his upbringing, all these things. And I think it could be very important. So, but first, we're going to walk through what we know so far. If you are just tuning into True Crime This Week, it is a podcast. I bring you the updates in the true crime world, all the true crime stories you might have missed during the week. And on Friday mornings, every week, I have new episodes. So this is kind of a special episode. I will be back actually on April 25th with the regular show. I'm in Chicago this Friday. So for now, let's jump into the Steffen Baldwin situation. Here's what we know so far. Here's a quick update or rundown on what we know. Steffen Baldwin, his fingerprints, a fingerprint, has been found inside Maura Murray's car. The police in New Hampshire dusted for prints many, many years ago. And then when Steffen was arrested here in Ohio fairly recently, his fingerprints popped up in the database APHIS. New Hampshire State Police contacted the detectives here in Ohio. And it's not just me saying this now. The detectives on record saying this to multiple media outlets.
And this is just another example of Rener's vindication, because I think Rener mentioned it before it was on the news clips. And obviously all the Dunning-Kruger goof trolls online were saying, oh, that's coming from Rener, it's not reliable. Yet he seems to be vindicated at every turn throughout this case. Year after year after year. And the goof doubters are still throwing nothing but hate. Clark in the chat says, I arrived at West Point in 2008. There was some talk about events from the recent past. I think the situation when Maura was found passed out drunk was part of the shenanigans I heard about. Hold on a second. I don't think you mentioned that incident. Clark says, I heard about the incidents from fellow faculty and current cadets. Hold on a second. When was she found out passed out drunk? This was not the incident with Steffen in the dorm room, was it? This is a separate incident? You know what's really dark and tragic? If she really was a victim here, and then there is a certain psychology, certain victims, especially if they're surrounded by gaslighting narcissists, if they're made to feel that it was their fault, that could theoretically spark a cycle, a repetition cycle, where they just continue being abused because they were gaslit by these scum narcissists. So they think it's their fault, and then the cycle continues. Pinto Sachs, okay, Walking in 4K says it was another incident. Supposedly upperclassmen left her on the lawn to be found with alcohol poisoning. Pinto Sachs says, didn't her friends drop her off on the lawn? Well, hold on a second. How did I not know about this? When was this incident first reported? It does not ring a bell at all. I mean, maybe I'm just covering way too many cases now, but that I do not recall that at all. I recall generic, very generic claims about problems with alcohol. That's it. No incident. Walking in 4K says you're pulling a Maxwell. No. I remember they were saying that she had issues with alcohol. I don't remember a specific incident where specifically upperclassmen left her unconscious on the lawn. Walking in 4K says, I heard it via Rener. Wait, in this, is that here? In this clip right here? I'm talking about, like, in years past. Was this incident reported in years past? Pinto Sack says, confirms my theory that Bruce and Maxwell are the same person. We are obviously not the same person. We have completely different tempos in speaking, not to mention thought processes. Not to mention, we talk over each other all the time. Walking in 4K says it's very recently revealed. Yeah, if it's in this clip, yeah, I wouldn't have heard of it. I skipped through it before, but I'm kind of giving my blind reaction here. I've been a little bit behind. And, okay, no, there were definitely reports of issues with alcohol. So how many incidents were there? And so if this happened, what else happened with the upperclassmen? Now, here's a really dark... There's two more dark theories that I just considered. One, if it's Baldwin's fingerprints in the car, is it possible Baldwin went to UMass? He's the one that drove Maura Murray's car. Like, so if he's crazy, let's say he's a crazy psychopath who does illegal things, would Maura call upon him to dump a car which might be wanted in a hit-and-run situation with Patrick Vassie? Would she more likely want to get this psycho guy to help her versus her boyfriend currently in the military? Clark says Maura had multiple disciplinary problems that were all individually serious in nature. And I think Clark was the one who revealed... So, did you say, Clark, that it was a security guard at the Fort Knox gift shop who gave his first-hand account? He actually saw Maura Murray shoplift with his own eyes? Is that what you had said? So the CCTV has not been released to confirm that. But I think that's what Clark said. Clark says Baldwin might have been reacting to what happened to Maura with Billy. Okay. So prior... Wait, hold on a second. So, was Maura involved with Billy prior to Billy finding Steffen with Maura? If you just give a brain fingerprint scan to Bill Rausch, the Steffen Baldwin goof, Sarah Alfieri, Kate Markopoulos, I mean, all these people that are still alive in the case, whatever police officers are still alive on scene, the Westmans, I mean, I think this was, this is definitely solvable. Clark says Maura was caught shoplifting on temporary duty at Knox. Yeah, I think you said there was visual observation of that, because I was theorizing that someone might have put it in her pocket as a prank or something of that nature. Not that that definitely happened, I'm just saying it's unknown, because that was kind of, I mean, I can't be the only one who knows that people did that. I mean, I don't know if people do that now, but back in like the 90s, early 2000s, that was like a thing people did. Like, I had seen teenagers doing that at the mall. Like, you know, the same, like, these nasty pranks, like the same type of pranks where, like, they trip somebody on the stairs and that's supposedly their friend who could get seriously injured, if not break their own neck. Those are the things teenagers did to each other. I mean, I'm not going to say it was super common, but it was a thing. I mean, I'm trying to think of, like, what is comparable. I don't know. I guess an older one would be filling a balloon up with water, right? And just, like, throwing it in your friend's face or something like that. That's kind of more 80s, right? 70s, 80s. I mean, just, you know, mean-spirited pranks that you do with your friends. Like, really mean-spirited. That was definitely one. It was even in the news a few times that people you know, it was kind of like their friend slipped something in their pocket.
That they had considered Steffen a suspect at that time. So that's why this individual is interesting. He was sentenced to time in prison here in Ohio for work with things he did with the animal care facilities he ran here in Ohio, animal cruelty stuff. So Steffen Baldwin attended West Point at the same time as Maura Murray under his birth name, Steffen Finkelstein. According to Steffen, while he was a cadet, he was in a relationship with Maura Murray for some time and acted as her student representative in front of a judicial review board at West Point when she got in trouble there. This was not the incident where she stole makeup from Fort Knox. This, he says, was a separate incident in which she was found passed out drunk on the lawn there.
You know what's curious? This actually vindicates Clark in the chat as well, because months and months ago, if not half a year ago, before this was ever on radar, Clark actually mentioned in the chat here, after not only his sightings of Maura, but that there was more than one disciplinary issue. It wasn't just the shoplifting. And this was before James Rener broke any of this. This was probably like last year or so. So Clark, to those that are saying Clark is making up these stories or that he really wasn't a professor, etc., etc., I mean, Clark seems to have dropped some insider knowledge. Like, it seems like there was a lot of truth to the rumblings of what he was hearing at West Point from other faculty and older cadets. This matches up exactly with what Clark said months to a year ago before any of this was breaking by James Rener. So that's interesting.
And he helped her out with that. He also left West Point within a week or so of when Maura left West Point. He left December 2001. Maura left January 2002. Then he changed his name from Steffen Finkelstein to Steffen Baldwin about 8 months after Maura Murray disappeared in 2004. Steffen is semi-famous in the dog rescue world here in Ohio. He ran his own rescue here for many years until the dogs started going missing. A lengthy investigation began. We eventually learned that Steffen was having dogs needlessly euthanized in order to create space for more dogs to be sent to his facility in an effort to generate money for a nonprofit, which he would then put into his pocket. Authorities found that Steffen had killed at least 18 dogs in Ohio and as many as 100 cats. When he learned he was under investigation, he fled to California, where he started a new business and killed another 18 dogs. He was arrested in August 2020. That's when his fingerprints pop up, charged with 42 felonies, including cruelty to companion animals, grand theft, bribery, and impersonating a peace officer.
And that's another curiosity, impersonating an officer, because there were not one, but two individuals. I did a whole episode on police impersonators in this small hamlet in the middle of nowhere in New Hampshire, in Haverhill. There was not one, but two known repeat police impersonators. And this guy also happens to impersonate officers? I mean, that's just a curiosity. Yeah, this guy's a scumbag with the, I mean, 15, I mean, he needs to get at least 150 years. I mean, that's just unconscionable. Fernigan says, so is it alleged that Billy Rausch was on Maura Murray's disciplinary committee or assigned as a mentor after Fort Knox, and Steffen Baldwin was given a similar mentor role after the alcohol poisoning lawn incident? If that's true, then that would be really scummy of West Point. They keep setting her up with these individuals that may harm her. I mean, just, yeah, a lot of stuff. And again, coincidentally, that Thursday night, the alleged Thursday night breakdown, where Maura may or may not have been fired that Thursday, coincidentally, that's when the information regarding the West Point scandals was coming out in national news. I mean, there's so many coincidences here. Walking in 4K says, I wonder if that it could include something like animal control officer, not necessarily like a dude LARPing as a cop. A peace officer, generally a cop is called a peace officer. I don't know if an animal control, I don't know if that'd be a peace officer per se, maybe.
After his arrest, police in Ohio entered the fingerprints into APHIS. That's when New Hampshire State Police Cold Case Unit Detective Charles West contacted the detective in Ohio and informed him that Steffen's prints had hit on evidence in the Maura Murray case. At that time, he told others that Steffen was his, quote, #1 suspect, end quote. West began to make plans to come to Ohio to speak with Steffen, but then West abruptly quit his position, in part explaining that his decision was due to drama surrounding the case and the actions of advocates working with the Murray family.
You know what's weird though? Like, so Chuck West, I mean, this is I went over him in the early episode. This guy's as shady as they come. And has any senior officer quit their job because some people said some mean things? I mean, it's kind of it's just kind of weird. Like, I don't know. I can't help but think if Chuck West is involved in naming this guy the #1 suspect, if this is all some kind of psyop diversion from what's really going on. For example, if there was some kind of interagency involvement, like you had the DEA activity, at U.S. Marshal activity that night in this hamlet in the middle of nowhere, New Hampshire, and like, let's say for the sake of argument, there was some kind of undercover FBI agent. Let's say Maura was somehow implicated. If she was recruited as a CI, it wouldn't be the first time. Also wouldn't be the first time a CI died in the course of being a CI. I mean, there was obviously there was the Sinacori case, right in the same exact school. We don't even have to go to a different school. So, and there was another one, too, at West Point. And then there's, of course, CIs from other schools who've also died as a result of being CIs. Because there's this huge sting up over a 2-digit pizza charge, an alleged unauthorized charge on a credit card. All of a sudden, Maura Murray's getting mugshots in the hallway. And a sting up put together in a matter of hours. I mean, just the level of lunacy. I mean, the coincidence theorists that write that off as normal, when has that ever happened, ever, in the history of alleged college fraud crimes for 2-digit credit card charges? Heck, let's throw in 3-digit charges. Heck, let's do 4. When has that ever happened even for a 4-digit fraudulent credit card charge? Where they were doing sting-ups and mugshots in hallways. So clearly there was something weird going on. If there was some kind of undercover FBI, because obviously like, the largest drug bust in that area in history was in her dorm. And if she's working desk security, maybe they suspected her of letting somebody in. She's calling late night Domino's. Obviously, Domino's in many areas was used to traffic drugs. People called Domino's after hours, code words, etc., and the drugs were in the Domino delivery. So again, this is all known by anyone who's not a brain-dead Dunning-Kruger coincidence theorist. So to think that that's some kind of a stretch in a case that's clearly an outlier case here, because regardless of what the truth is, this is an outlier case. There's so much funny business here, it's insane. I mean, the FBI were on the ground at UMass immediately as well. Who knows if they, either gave out official gag orders or simply told people not to say anything. If the FBI tells you not to say anything, you might not say anything, even if there's no official gag order. If they went around and talked to everybody who knew Maura at UMass, which apparently they did. And the UMass has been more silent than in any other missing persons case ever. Because in any other case, there's all these people at UMass speaking out, fellow track team members, fellow classmates, friends, dorm, people in the dorm who knew her. They're all on the news talking about it. And yet, at UMass, dead silence. So, yeah, this is clearly an outlier case. So, if there was some kind of drug situation or the FBI or DEA was involved, I mean, who knows if one of these people was with Maura at the alcohol store, if they were undercover, and then something happens en route to New Hampshire, or even not, or even at UMass. If Maura somehow died in intersecting with the FBI or another agency, all of this upper agency involvement, that's the only thing that I've seen that could account for this much funny business top down on the law enforcement side. So, is Chuck West doing damage control for the string pullers by trying to point at Steffen? And you know what would be really crazy? If Steffen really was involved on some level. Like, let's say he was going to visit Maura, and maybe he was abusive to her. I mean, who knows what could have happened? And again, I'm not alleging he killed his previous ex-girlfriends. Not one, but two. But perhaps there was going to be something that happened with Maura, but the other FBI agent accidentally or otherwise killed Maura first. I mean, again, let's not fall any logical fallacies here. I'm not doing false dichotomies or appealing to incredulity or any of the other silly fallacies that the Dunning-Kruger crowd grasps desperately for. So, again, obviously we can't trust anything Chuck West says, but to just completely quit over some people saying things on a case, that's kind of weird. Has that ever happened before? Clark says it would be pretty scummy to use authority, coercion, and vulnerability to pass a person through a system where multiple persons can SA them is scummy. Yes, indeed. Clark says Baldwin might have been in New Hampshire because Billy Roush was coming to protect Maura, or maybe McDonald and Billy got there first, or vice versa. Yes, that's what I said earlier as well. Who knows?
I don't know if you followed the case back then, but it was nutty. And a lot of these advocates were muddying the waters and just relentlessly attacking the police. And saying they were doing so, in honor of the family. The FBI visited Steffen in the spring of 2024. So last April, Steffen is communicating with the FBI here. Actually, I don't know if they went down to Florida to talk to him. But the FBI finally interviewed him about Maura Murray just last year. So he remains interesting to the case and to the investigation. Now, when I spoke to Steffen outside the courtroom before his sentencing, he told me that the fingerprint they found was on a CD or CD case inside her vehicle, and that he explained that away because, when they were seeing each other, they would swap CDs, and he would make her like mixtapes, and so that's how his fingerprint got on there. However, it's important to note that comes only from Steffen. We know there was a fingerprint found, but Steffen's the only one that tells us it was on a CD or CD case. That has not been verified. We don't know for sure where they found that fingerprint yet. So anyways, recently Steffen was sentenced to 15 years in prison here in Ohio. After posting my initial podcast update about the fingerprint match, I was contacted by a former girlfriend of Steffen's who went into great detail about his abusive behavior. In fact, 2 of his former girlfriends have died, one overdosed, one in a car crash while intoxicated, and this girlfriend believes it was Steffen's behavior that contributed to their breakdowns and deaths. The detective agrees with that too. Steffen's mother, Barbara Baldwin, is currently missing, though it's unclear if any family member actually filed an official report. They were kind of estranged, but nobody's seen her since like 2007. Steffen claims that he's never been to UMass or the state of New Hampshire. In fact, he said he was never north of Connecticut. But after obtaining his Facebook messages through these public records requests, I found messages referencing a trip he took to Boston, which is certainly north of Connecticut, and a statement about how he wanted to live in New Hampshire, which I think is an odd thing to say if you've never been there. Sure, you could argue, yeah, one day I want to live in Fiji or like Hawaii. I've never been to those places. Sounds nice. New Hampshire's a little different. I don't know. It makes more sense if you've seen it yourself and have been there. Since I broke the news, several other media outlets, including the Columbus Dispatch and the Daily Mail, have written articles about how Steffen's fingerprints were found in her car. However, so far, the New Hampshire State Police have not responded to the reporters' requests for comment. Maura Murray's family has also not commented on the matter. They've been completely silent about it. We don't know a lot yet about the reporters' requests for comment. Maura Murray's family has also not commented on the matter. They've been completely silent about it. We don't know a lot yet about Steffen. We don't know where he was in February 2004. The detective who investigated Steffen said there's a black hole of information from 2001 to about 2006. Steffen was reportedly living in California at the time, though he did have a habit, according to previous girlfriends, of taking off on long car rides across the country alone. On these trips, he would tell his girlfriends that they shouldn't try to contact him. I have not been able.
Is it just me, or does that kind of sound like Israel Keyes serial killer level activity? Like he's just randomly taking cross-country road trips and he's completely out of contact? I mean, is that serial killer vibes or what? I mean, that's kind of weird. I mean, yeah, people go on trips. How many of them go on, periodically just randomly go on cross-country trips with no contact? Clark says, I guarantee Maura's disappearance is tied to USMA. Perhaps it wasn't a UMass cadet, but a USMA cadet. Pronounced Yuzma. Did I get that right? Yuzma? Can I say USMA? It just seems like he would say USMA. They may have claimed to be cadets to get over with the cops at the Saturday night crash site. Yeah, here's another dark theory. I didn't mention it earlier. I'll mention it here just to be comprehensive. Is it possible, if there was some kind of dark SA club at West Point involving professors and upperclassmen, etc., taking advantage of these underclassmen women, is it possible they staged the alcohol poisoning, where they kind of egged her on and then drugged her and whatever, and they were hoping to get rid of her then? That was attempt 1. Saturday night crash was attempt 2. And then the Monday night was attempt 3.
To place him in New Hampshire, like I said, though he does talk in some of these messages about connecting with a dog shelter in that state, about some work. Today, as I said, I received more documents, including this autobiography that Steffen started writing about 2011. The writing is surprisingly good. This is a publishable book. I don't know that it would appeal to a lot of people, but basically what it is a mixture of memoir and stories about hiking through on Ohio trails with his dogs and getting in touch with nature. Within the pages, he speaks candidly about his traumatic childhood, his time at West Point, and his constant efforts to fight his mental illness. Steffen claims to have been diagnosed with bipolar II. The autobiography is called Take a Hike. Let me read some passages from the book. These are quoted directly from the book. This first little bit tells a little bit about his rough childhood. Quote, I was supposed to be a discarded fetus in a back alley abortion procedure somewhere in New York City during the days when it was still illegal. We, my mom, my older brother, our goldfish, and I, moved from the East Coast over to where my mom's family lived in Southern California after downgrading from a house to a 2-bedroom apartment to a 1-bedroom apartment in a large all-brick multi-story complex that was full of other lower-income families. At that time, our address technically was our 1978 VW Super Beetle. For almost 5 months, we lived out of that car in hotel rooms until we made the drive cross-country and connected with my grandma, who lived in a tiny, dusty little town known as Yucca Valley, California. This next bit is when he is talking about his time at West Point, which is only in about half of a chapter in this book. And that's another thing about Steffen is he was this louder-than-life figure here in Ohio, very braggadocious. You know, he would constantly be bragging about his accolades, everything he's done. Nobody likes Steffen as much as Steffen likes Steffen. But he never talked about West Point. He never talked about Maura Murray or having this relationship with this woman who disappeared. That would have gotten him a lot of sympathy. He could have talked up West Point more to give himself that background. That was stuff he was quiet about.
Another interesting parallel to Bill Rausch. Apparently, Bill Rausch never talked about her, never was involved in anything other than the couple weeks initially. And other than that one slip-up when he was drunk, when he allegedly told one girl, I'm going to do to you what I did to Maura Murray or something of that nature. Other than that, has he ever mentioned her? So both of these guys that allegedly had relationships with her at West Point just never mention her ever again. I'm starting to wonder if Bill and Steffen were both part of this club and both were involved in shady illegal activity, possibly with McDonald. When that nationwide news broke that Thursday night, maybe even if Julie Murray is involved, again, I'm not alleging she is, but if she is, did a lot of people get spooked that Maura was going to say something? See, we've been discussing whether Bill's the good guy or Steffen's the good guy or vice versa. If they're both the bad guy, was this some kind of a coordinated effort against Maura by both of these guys? And that doesn't mean they were friends at all. They could be enemies, but Bill could have just randomly called him and told him he'd be going down for something if he didn't help. So even if they hated each other, they could have still worked together. How's that for a mind-shocking theory?
For whatever reason. Here's what he says about West Point in the book. Quote, I've run from my own tortured memories for years, and I have never been able to shake the very real and strong feeling of some strange impending doom in my life. From somewhere in high school until this very day, I've always felt like my whole life has been lived on a slowly sinking ship with no life raft, just waiting to fail and end up homeless or dead or in prison, or some other unfortunate fate. No matter how far or how fast I've ran, that sense of impending doom has always stayed on my shoulders, as dark and ominous as the clouds in Tar Hollow, which is a hiking area in Ohio. He talks then about this Twilight Zone episode where a woman slowly comes to realize that she's dead. And this is what he says after that, quote, maybe that's my problem. Maybe I'm already dead and I just don't know it yet. Maybe that's why it's so hard for me to feel anything anymore or shake the ever-present feeling of impending doom. It's completely irrational, both the fear of impending doom and the notion that I might be stuck in some type of purgatory, unaware of my true fate. Edgar Allan Poe and I have a lot in common, and I've always loved losing myself in his literary works. We both reluctantly attended and subsequently dropped out of the United States Military Academy at West Point after receiving numerous demerits for bad behavior. On a side note, my departure from West Point and military service was markedly different than Poe's. I voluntarily resigned after 1.5 years and was honorably discharged after 3.5 years of total military service. I spent 2 years enlisted prior to arriving at West Point, holding a secret security clearance and conducting satellite surveillance as a military intelligence soldier and paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division. I graduated with honors from my military intelligence class, and I proudly carry the Guide-On flag during almost every run in airborne school as one of the youngest soldiers in my platoon. I enlisted at the age of 17, just turned 18 before jump school. Our second summer at West Point, during training, I received the company coin for Most Superior Performance during cadet military training, which I still keep on a mantle next to an old gold watch from a grandfather I never knew. The man can turn a phrase. He goes on to say, to be fair and accurate, however, by the time I left West Point, halfway through my yuck, which is their sophomore year, I did hold the record at that time for disciplinary actions at 347 demerits.
This guy's setting all sorts of records. Clark, is that accurate? Is it possible to get over 300 demerits? Clark says that coin is meaningful. That's a significant achievement. Again, if he really has it, I don't know if anybody did the homework to verify what he's saying there. Regarding walking in 4K, says abortion has been legal in New York City since 1970, so I'm pretty sure that dude is full of expletive there. He's not from the 60s. Is it possible people didn't know? I mean, there's no internet. There's no smartphone to check it. Because it definitely wasn't legal everywhere. I actually don't know if it was legal in New York City. Yeah, 1970, 3 years before Roe vs. Wade. I wonder if he... Okay, so that was that's all of New York State? Wow, that's interesting. The whole state. Huh. Okay, so it's... People of all ages have the... So according to ag.ny.gov, abortion through the 24th week. After 24 weeks, it's permitted if your medical provider decides your fetus is not viable. Okay, so we don't know what week, right? And did she... So how poor was his mother? So did they not know it was legal? I mean, you know, that's not necessarily something. And how old was his mother? If she's a random teen and it's illegal in most places, would she even have known it was legal in New York? Was she maybe not from New York and she was just passing through New York and she didn't check? Like, how do you check? In 1970, like, how would you check? You go to the, like, where would you go? Or I guess you could just call, I guess you could call a non-emergency police number to double check, but, or I mean, who would you call? You could call the city office. So it's, again, if it's a super young mother and it's illegal in most places, she might not have known that it was legal, even if it was. Also, there's always protests and all that going, I mean, even now. So she might have assumed it wasn't, or whatever. Okay, so walking in 4K says, I wonder how many demerits Murray had to be asked to leave. Clark says she was not asked to leave. Clark says demerits are not for honor board issues, or they could be interrelated. You guys need to understand the honor board. Okay, so is it possible to get that over 300 demerits and not not have an effect? Like, how common was it to get over 300? Because he's saying he had the most at over 300. So is like 100, 200 common for, you know, a couple of the troubled cadets? Is that common? Is that possible? Or is it usually a case of 10, 20, 30 and his account would not be true?
within 1.5 years. I quickly earned 80 demerits for having some bottles of liquor hidden away in my desk, but the joke was on them because most of the bottles were good and empty by the time they came looking. There was another 75 demerits earned for being caught with a personal vehicle on base. Only seniors have that privilege. I used the car to sneak my friends off base and head down to New York City to party in rave-like clubs all night, experimenting with ecstasy courtesy of my club promoter girlfriend at the time. And here's where he talks about Maura Murray, though not by name. Another 120 demerits for being found by an upperclassman on the same horizontal surface as a female cadet with the lights out and the door closed. Yeah, West Point is that anal retentive. They couldn't say we were having sex. And what the report won't tell you is the only reason I got turned in is because the upperclassman who found us had a huge crush on the girl he found me with. He goes on to say, my entire childhood had been completely controlled by my overprotective mother, and as my therapist pointed out to me a few weeks ago during our weekly sessions, I simply exchanged one version of complete control for another version of complete control. I just couldn't do that through most of my young adult life. I had to break free. I had to figure out who I was, not who I was supposed to act like. Because at 20, going on 21, I was having some serious identity issues. I found myself wholly unable to define myself outside of my role as a prior service cadet at West Point. Later on in the book, he goes into detail about describing how he acts in the world and how he feels on the inside. And I think this gives a very interesting insight into what's really going on with Steffen Baldwin. Whether or not, we don't know. We don't know what happened. We know the FBI is interested in him. We know New Hampshire State Police. We know his fingerprints are in his car, even though he gives an excuse for that. Maybe it's nothing more than that. To me, it's still interesting for a number of reasons. One, this is definitely a guy with some violent tendencies that's connected to this case. Two, I think it in some way establishes a pattern of behavior for Maura herself. She seems drawn to people like this that are slightly dangerous. Steffen Baldwin, her fiance at the time, Bill Rausch, who's since been convicted of assault and was charged with felony sex abuse in D.C. So I think it provides, at the very least, a bigger picture. Let me get to Steffen's reflections on himself, though. Here's what he says. Inside every cyclone, there is a place that is quiet and absolutely still. That place, the eye of the storm, is peaceful and harmonic, in stark contrast to the chaos and destructive energy it is so closely surrounded by. My life had become a cyclone for years, yet I longed to sit inside the calm eye of the storm. I longed for it so much that my heart ached at the very thought of knowing that peace and harmony. I would reach and stretch my fingertips out past the maelstrom, hoping to feel something new, to know something pleasant. At the same time, as the cyclone picked up speed and became more and more powerful, I feared leaving what I have always known. I held on even as it began to destroy me. All along, another part of me, a part of me that I tried to ignore, sat back and watched the entire scene play out from a distance. The same person, me, yet strangely disconnected somehow. On the outside, I am very happy and an outgoing person, but on the inside I feel relatively cold and emotionless. A tiny spark was ignited in my heart with the birth of my son, though a warm ember that grew bigger as he grew older. Steffen goes on to say, these are some quotes from later on in the book. People have always frustrated and annoyed me. I find the majority of people to be incredibly dense, dull, unaware, and uninteresting. A young man, successful in his field, people radiated toward me constantly despite my internal desire to smack the silly smiles off of each and every one of them.
Psychologically, this is kind of interesting to read. I mean, obviously there's a lot of narcissism here. Now, obviously, we haven't really seen any videos of him interacting with people, so again, I'm not going to call that wrong that people are attracted to him or gravitate towards him. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I mean, Ted Bundy was supposedly quite charismatic. But, yeah, I don't know. it could all be narcissism. Then again, through animal rescue and stuff, I mean, you could totally see how he could be manipulating so many people, including the ladies. And apparently, if this is true, he's got a history of that. So, and if he's the drug connection, I mean, people would gravitate towards the drug connection if they want some drugs. So if he always had drugs and booze, you could kind of see how he could be popular. Despite, the MK Ultra stare and looking quite average in every sense of the word. I mean, people with drug connections are quite popular. I remember a guy in high school. I mean, this guy was pretty ugly looking, quite overweight. I mean, not morbidly obese or anything, but it's a guy that probably no one would probably have anything to do with, but he was the drug connection. So he was friends with everybody. But you could literally see other people who looked like him and had the same personality who weren't drug connections. They really didn't have much friends. So being a drug connection, taking people partying to clubs in New York, if that's true, I mean, he would definitely be a popular guy. Even if people didn't really like him, they were just using him for the drugs and the partying, etc. Quite common. So it's not that unbelievable. Clark says, the honor board system is more formal, can lead to separation, withholding, graduation, etc., much more serious. But Clark, is over 300 demerits, does that track? Is that possible to have hundreds and hundreds of demerits and not be kicked out? Like over 300? Clark says, I have worked with so many cadets who fit this description. Maybe Maura Murray was kind of targeted. She had no chance of going through West Point without getting mixed up with those kind of guys. And if it was also professors and other personnel, West Point personnel, that were either enabling or looking the other way and allowing this to happen, I mean, that's quite disgusting. Because she seemed really happy. She was a completely different person before and after West Point. I actually went over this. I forgot which episode. Maybe I'll have to make a clip of it. Like, all her photos pre and post West Point were like a different person. It's like she seemed to rarely have a genuine smile post West Point. Clark says, it's a bad number of demerits, but not fatal. Okay, so it's theoretically possible he could have that many. I'm just trying to make sure his story adds up here.
Always wearing that goddamn mask of humor and jokes. That mask with its constant smile and clever wit protected me. In a sense, it let me keep up the pretense of what they saw. So I needed that mask. The mask would slip off in public once in a while, and for a moment some unlucky sap would see the anger and pain behind my smiles and would be subject to a vicious tongue or email, lashing of justified rage that would spew from my mouth or fingers with vitriol and a clear line of logic and expansive vernacular that showed off my 4 years of competitive speech and debate during my less athletic high school years. My mask made me look like a likable, affable, happy, and well-adjusted person to the world. It helped me sit through lunch meetings looking thoroughly interested and engaged, even though the only thing that caught my interest in the slightest was when the coffee was deliciously scalding hot or when the waitress had an equally delicious pair of ass and tits to admire. Everything else was a mask, a facade, a surface version of me. The storefront display, put your best face forward version of me. Behind the mask, it was just pressure and pain, anger and apathy, resentment and restlessness. I would make an appearance at work, tell the staff I had an off-site meeting and obligations, and would go home and smoke pot while I watched old sci-fi reruns or spent hours passively looking at porn online and masturbating. I would sit quietly, embarrassed that I blew up on someone, angry at myself for my recent lack of ability to control my off button. I have to live in my head with the demons that have chased me and tormented me since childhood. A little peek into Steffen Baldwin's mind. He remains incarcerated in Ohio for probably the next 15 years. we'll wait and see what comes next. I am continuing to talk to people who knew him from West Point and from Ohio and previous girlfriends. So still getting info, and if I find anything groundbreaking, I'll let you know. In the meantime, if you knew Steffen, if you happen to know where he was in 2004, certainly interested, you can send me an email at jameswrenner@gmail.com. All right, thanks. And like I said, I'll be back with True Crime this week. Subscribe, tune in.
Okay, so that's that's the Renner info here. I do want to go over one more thing here. Okay, I just want to go over one more thing here. So, this is from the Daily Mail article on Baldwin. Fingerprint offers break in notorious missing persons case, pointing to a new suspect with a checkered past. April 6, 2025. So it says here, authorities have not confirmed where Baldwin's prints were discovered within Maura's car. It's funny, if Baldwin lied to Rener and said it was on the CD as a way to get out of it, was it on the steering wheel? Or the handles? The door handles? That'd be curious. Did he smoke? I think some people said he did smoke. Again, I don't know if that's been definitively verified. So he told me he didn't contact her after West Point and said he didn't even know she was missing until he saw her case on a TV special and had never read anything about it online, said Rener. And that to me is strange because this is a girl you apparently had a relationship with in college and you're not at all interested in her disappearance. He had all this information about Maura's alleged stalker at West Point 20 years ago. Why didn't he share that with detectives earlier? Steffen Baldwin has made some odd choices. So Rener interviewed this guy, of course. So I find this story about a guy named Chris and that Maura had a stalker difficult to believe. It definitely reads to me as someone is trying to steer detectives to somebody else. Huh. And then again, why the name change randomly? That's a little weird, too. And Baldwin's mother, Barbara Baldwin, reportedly hasn't been seen or heard from since 2007. Maura Murray's older sister, Julie Murray, could not be reached for comment. So apparently, Julie Murray is not getting back to media outlets regarding Baldwin for some reason. I wonder, again, I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue, how well does Julie know Baldwin? Pinto Sack says maybe he's the infamous man smoking a cigarette. Maybe he is. So, in a podcast reinvestigating the case last year, Media Pressure, Julie shared that Maura was instant messaging with 2 men she knew from West Point shortly before she was seen for the last time. Julie didn't share the names of the individuals in question, referring to them only under the pseudonyms Dan and Tom. So again, we don't know if one of these guys was Steffen. My conversation with Tom was a bit more interesting. He was also Maura's classmate at school, and he communicated with Maura on instant messenger days before she disappeared. So here are these 2 Give me a second, I'll get him on the screen. I think James Renner shared these as well. Just another second here. Almost got it. Okay. Okay. Should be on the screen. Okay, one more second here, YouTube lag. Okay, let's take a look at these. Good afternoon. I hope this email finds you well. Since we spoke, I spent a little time looking into the details around Maura's disappearance and trying to think of anything that might be even the slightest bit relevant. I admittedly never looked into Maura's case too much just because I always had that little twinge of disappointment in how the relationship ended. I mentioned the group of upperclassmen when you were here who took Maura out and got her so drunk that she passed out on a front lawn and they left her there to deal with the disciplinary repercussions. And again, I wonder if there's something more to that story. The only other thought I have, that this is even a bigger stretch, but at 20 years, I guess anything is worth mentioning, there was a fifth-year senior during the 01-02 year at West Point who was obsessed with Maura. I want to say Chris was his name. I can't be positive on that, but I know that there aren't many fifth-year seniors, so hopefully it's not too hard to nail that individual down. So apparently, wasn't Baldwin, I think he said he left after 1.5 years, but he had been following Maura around at school a lot, and I only know that because he burst into my room one night when Maura and I were together, and we both got a lot of demerits. Okay, so apparently... Okay, so this is Baldwin talking about a different guy who's a stalker, a fifth-year senior. Now, why would he bring up a fifth-year senior if it wasn't true? And Roush wasn't a fifth-year senior, was he? Okay, so he burst into my room one night when Maura and I were together. We both got a lot of demerits for sharing the same horizontal surface as a cadet of the opposite sex. When I asked Maura how this upperclassman knew she was in my room, she basically said that he had been stalking her, but was pretty dismissive about the whole thing. I can't imagine she ever gave him the time of day, and I don't know what happened to him, and I'm not even sure what his name was. But as I think about anything that might be helpful, those are the two thoughts that I could come up with to help narrow him down beyond a 50-year senior, possibly named Chris. I would hope that our disciplinary records might show who turned us in that night. Okay, so apparently that wouldn't be a lie then. So if this guy is Baldwin, that's curious. Oh, wow. Clark said this lawn pass-out incident might be the one I'm familiar with. Professors who were also senior Army officers were disciplined and fired. Well, hold on a second here. Clark, are you saying that professors and senior Army officers were fired over this incident with Maura? Wow, how wide is this web here? Clark says, man, I wish I would chime in with a longer format explanation of West Point. It's hard to type in chat. Yeah, I might have to have Clark on. I mean, Clark's been vindicated so far pretty much at every turn here regarding this case. So perhaps it'll be warranted. I don't think I've ever had an interview with somebody regarding this case specifically, obviously other than Maxwell. And I think I might have had Sid Irwin on a couple times just to pick his brain on the case, but yeah, this is pretty crazy. So there were professors involved here? And so if this guy is Baldwin and he's communicating with Julie Murray, I mean, I wonder if that's why Julie is remaining silent here, because of other communication that she hasn't shared. But apparently, if this is on the up and up, I mean, I don't know. It would seem that Julie was not familiar with this guy. I asked if he ever visited Maura. Okay, so this is an email that Baldwin sent to the FBI that I just read, detailing his alleged relations with Maura and pointed a finger of suspicion at an individual named Chris. Okay, so is it not confirmed that Julie was in contact with him? Julie said that Maura was instant messaging two men from West Point. She didn't share the names of these individuals. But Julie said she had a conversation with Tom. So supposedly Julie talked to Tom. Is that Baldwin? Huh. I asked if he ever visited Maura at UMass. He said no, but get this, I have a photo of them together at UMass in 2003. I sent him the photo and he stopped responding. Now, I'm not saying he had anything to do with it. Maybe he was just tired of my questions, but I found this odd. So this is what Julie Murray said about him. Okay, if Julie Murray is telling the truth here, then it would seem that Julie Murray does not know Baldwin herself. So she has a photo of Baldwin and Maura at UMass in 2003. If this is Baldwin, or this could be the other guy. But his story is pretty much exactly like Baldwin's. And it looks like he's using the exact same quote, the exact same sentence, sharing the same horizontal surface as the cadet of the... I mean, I guess that's in the rule book, because that's a quote. So maybe that doesn't... Maybe anybody that goes to UMass, to West Point would have said that. Okay, so that's what we have. That's what we have here so far. So, any final thoughts here before we round this out? Yeah, I don't know. This is pretty tough. Walking in 4K says you should have James Renner on. I would like to actually... I think James Renner and John Smith could solve this thing if they teamed up. Because they, between the two of them, they seem to cover all the angles. So they could at least rule out certain angles. Clark actually says, I don't know if it was this incident or another one. Okay, so it might not have been this incident passed out on the lawn. There might have been another incident in which West Point professors who were also senior Army officers were fired over incidents having to do with Maura Murray. That's curious. And maybe that's why she wanted to leave the school, because there was just a lot of tension with professors, because professors were getting fired over things that had to do with her. Walking in 4K says, what happened to John? Haven't seen him around forever. I think he's posting under another name, unless it's not him. But someone claiming to be him had contacted me on Reddit within the past year or so. I don't know if I can verify that that is him, though. He took a break, but, yeah. Let me see. Is he still on Twitter? Okay, yeah, I'm not sure. So apparently, was John Smith being sued? It looks like there was some kind of con artist was using John Smith's name, and then there's this massive lawsuit. Huh. I kind of forgot about that. Yeah, there was a GoFundMe 2021 legal defense fund. Oh, wait, was it? Okay, So there was an update February 2022. And I don't know... Yeah, is that the last we've heard from him? Definitively? That's a good question. Let's see... So his site, Truth Seekers Investigations Search for More Murray.wordpress.com, is apparently all private now. Okay. So I don't know, maybe he hasn't been too active unless he really is still posting under different names. I remember some social media posts about his cat, but that might have been prior to 2022, so I don't know if there's anything definitive. Yeah, I don't know. If somebody more knowledgeable on the case can... He might be posting under different names on Reddit, but... Oh, wow. Clark says the administration processing for the professor's firing took a long time. He left when I was there in 06. So it was one professor or more than one professor who got fired over Murray? Has that professor been investigated? Alright, so yeah, we're gonna round this out here. So, plenty more to come, obviously, but hopefully, I said it before and I'll say it again, hopefully this case gets solved before episode 100, because that's just crazy. If you want to help the MINDSHOCK podcast continue to spread awareness in missing persons cases, other true crime cases, you can donate to our PayPal. Check the link in the description. Make sure you're subscribed, like, and share. Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.